you know, screw everybody and do my own thing. Because it was so exciting.
Well, and in fact, that leads us really nicely then into my next question for you guys, which we'll see. I might spin it out kind of into a two-part question. The original question that we came up with was: do you consider your work a form of self-expression, or is it something else that you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, it's definitely self-expression. Yeah. Which is a great question, by the way. People really love the question, are games arts? And all of a sudden it becomes like a really heated debate because no one knows what they mean by art, but self-expression is.
I'm glad you brought that up because I was teasing you a little bit when I introduced you as an artist, though I do consider that. But you're right, it's a nice way of cutting through the complication of those issues.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I basically designed for myself. Ellis was totally made for myself, and we kind of suffered from that because it wasn't really play tested. And it was just a very hard game. I thought it was going to be a casual game, and it's totally hardcore. So I'm kind of learning how to like bring the players in my design process. But yeah, I guess Ellis was 100% self-expression. My future works will be, a lot of self-expression as well as some, usability built in.
So was it really just a game that you wanted to play, that you had to create because it didn't exist?
Yeah, I wanted to play it, I wanted to experience it. That's how I led the.
So jumping to Dan, because obviously Dear Esther is a very different kind of game from Ellis. What do you think about this issue? And I'm particularly interested to hear your answer in the context of Dear Esther. In terms of, is it your self-expression? Is it somebody else's self-expression?
Well, kind of, I mean, the way it works is that the kind of core basis of the Chinese room is me and Jessica Curry, who's a composed audio designer that Curry said character to be narrative. And the way in which we worked with games, we worked with a couple of different environment builders, has been that there are a couple of kind of core ideas, but they're not really fully formed. Dear Esther really started off with a 4-kilogram lump of clay on a desk. We knew there were some structural things we had to do. We had to limit the play space. We knew we wanted to make mod engines, so we knew we had a very tight budget in terms of assets and things like that. And so, although I guess I kind of drove the vision of it, a lot of my writing responds very holistically to Jess's audio. So we tend to bounce fragments off each other and do very, very, very fast kind of like iterations of vision, I suppose. I think that's not kind of too pompous a way of doing it.
That's exactly.
And then try and work that with the environment build as well. So as the environment's coming together, so the writer is responding to the environment, the music is responding to the environment, the writer is responding to the music. And because I'm a writer, I find that really inspiring about games, and I don't share the kind of general frustrations a lot of game writers that we have to stick our story on the end of the project once it's finished. To me, that's a really exciting thing. You can say, we've got this environment, we've got these gameplay mechanisms, we've got this basic structure, and now we need to write that really small box. That's actually really exciting, but frustrating for me.
Do you think it's exciting perhaps because you've been involved in the process all the way down the line?
Yeah, I guess it might be, but I mean, I don't generally instinctively have too much of a problem with it as well. I mean, I guess I used to say I'm a writer who also makes games a couple of years ago. Now it's a game writer. I've got no massive interest in writing for any other medium, and that's one of the reasons why game writing is becoming stronger and stronger, which we'll talk about Sunday, on that. Is because we're stopping to have writers from other mediums turning to games, and we're starting to get a generation of writers who write games, and that's what they do. And they're not frustrated television writers or frustrated novelists, they're game writers, and that's great. So I guess, does that?
Yeah, no, that totally does. I do want to ask you, because we've never talked about the modelling clay part of the process. Was it like you and Jess kind of grabbing it and...
Well, Jess wouldn't have anything to do with that, but it was like, it was like a cross between, the scene in Close Encounters, where like, sculpting out mashed potatoes, like a cross between that and every serial killer film you've ever seen. We had this office the university student gave us, and then they came back in and we had this 4-foot mountain of clay on the table and just mad scribblings just all over the walls, just kind of there. And it was just us kind of going, okay, with the knife, so we can come up the side here, go through a little door, a passage through there. And that was a fun way of kind of writing, because it was just like exploring a three-dimensional space and then seeing what script or emotional journey would fit that three-dimensional space that we kind of knew we were going to build in the word game.
Right, yes, yeah. That's really interesting, yeah. I also want to ask you about this question, Andre, because, I mean, yes, first of all, self-expression, something else?
No, for me it was definitely self-expression. I think a lot of it was self-expression through experience. With Minor Battle, that was my thesis project, so I had to find something to hold on to for an entire year, while I was also going to school. And for me, it was the experience of creating this playground with people. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't so much about only the game space, it was the combination of game space and physical space and how they interact with each other and how that brought out different social behaviors in people.
Right.
So as I designed the game, everything added or removed from the game had to deal with that appeal, with that experience, and how that affected the player.
Now that's an interesting thing that you mentioned, removing things from the game. You told me when we were talking recently that you had many different game modes initially in Minor Battle.
Yeah. I think there's still like 6 modes in the code, and there's very traditional game modes like capture the flag and match and things like that. And there's other ones where aliens are falling down from the sky and you're just running around trying to kill these. They're not even aliens; they're like robots.
Alien robots.
But it didn't really grab the experience I wanted. It didn't produce this just joy of running around. It was kind of more of a chore with those modes. And so, when I felt that as I played or if I observed someone else playing, I took that stuff out because that wasn't the experience I wanted.
And you whittled it down to just one game mode?
Yeah. The ones I showed at showcases in IndieCade last year was just one mode, and that one seemed to encompass everything I wanted. And so over the last 3 months of development of the game, I only focused on that mode.
And so this gives me the opportunity to open it up a little bit. And Minor Battle is a great example, because in your whole playtesting process, you must have watched players in the same physical space playing the game.
Yeah.
And a question that I'm interested in is around this subject of self-expression is, what's the boundary like between the game designer and the development team who are making the thing and the experience of the player? Because in some sense it's not as simple as when a novelist writes a novel or a filmmaker makes a film. There's the question of everything that the player brings to the experience, which is really just a set of possibilities that you've created. Do you want to jump in, guys? Do any of you have anything to say to that?
Yeah, so I'm making pretty much a puzzle game, and my experience in making a puzzle game is completely different from the experience that people are going to have playing a puzzle game, because I know the solutions to all the puzzles right off the bat, so I can't really sit there and try to solve a puzzle the same way a player who doesn't know the solution is going to sit there and solve a puzzle. And that really gets tedious to actually work on, because you can't really get enjoyment out of playing your own game in that situation.
So how do you navigate your way through that experience, which I know well is hard? It's the hardest work I've ever done in puzzles.
Yeah. So what I've generally been doing is trying to make sort of mini games out of finding out the way that the mechanics I come up with can interact with each other. And I'll make a whole bunch of levels that aren't really levels, they're just sort of experiments, and then I'll say, I'll make a level, and I'll figure out the path I want the player to take, and then how they have to go through that path to get there, and then maybe throw in a few random little distractions in the level or something to throw them off, or find secrets. It's a completely different mindset than actually thinking through how you're going to solve it.
So you've got a bunch of ideas, presumably, about the player's psychology.
Yeah.
How do you test out those ideas?
Most of my testing has just been at conventions and conferences.
So just trying it on loads.
Yeah, we got a big TV screen for IGF or PAX or IndieCade or whatever, and I just watch people play it. And I'll see some levels people will keep doing the same wrong thing over and over and over again. And you just want to like strangle them because they're doing the wrong thing. But
for them, it's the right thing. Yeah?
For them, it's the right thing, and most of the.
And you're not allowed to strangle players.
Yeah, no, that wouldn't be a good thing at all. One day, yeah, maybe in like.
So, I mean, this is probably a huge conversation for this evening or something, but for right now, guys, do you have anything to add to this sort of question of player authorship?
I think it's a lot of fun. I mean, I think that's probably the reason why we're sitting around this table and why people are at this conference, is because unlike any other medium, we've got the player in the middle of it messing things up. And you have to respond to that, you have to play with that, and that collision of your vision and someone else's vision, landing in the middle in this complex system, it's beautiful and it's difficult and it's challenging, and it just makes the medium, just for me, just more exciting than any other on the planet.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. That's a good note to round off that section on.
Just to follow, I think it's interesting that what you're saying about puzzle games, you cannot enjoy playing them. I think like unconsciously some game designers just avoid games that are totally scripted and try to build something that's like random or infinite or and like I don't know if I'm making a lot of sense, but like Faraway is I can play that for hours although I've built it because it's all built friendly and I'm sharing an office with Derek Hughes making Spelunky, which is a fantastic game. Like it's a platformer, and
with generative levels.
Yeah, exactly, with generative levels, and there's just like, and you know, we were looking at it and we were debating how are we going to solve this level, and we had totally different ideas about it. We were like, I'm going to kill the shopkeeper. Actually, Derek, like, I'm going to kill the shopkeeper. And I'm like, what? Really? Kill the shopkeeper? That's crazy. But,
where will you get your potions from in the future?
Yeah, and apparently it's actually a really good move, but basis notes. I could ramble for a long time.
But you're kind of raising an interesting issue because you know, some of the games that we make are more sort of authored in terms of their content. Others are to do with authoring systems of play that maybe have different kinds of possibility spaces around them. And I think you've drawn out an interesting contrast in those two. I've done a lot of puzzle design in the way that you're doing right now, Tyler, and it's a different kind of experience. Yeah, it's a little more jagged for the designer. Hopefully, potentially equally rich for the player.
We also, I mean, Uncharted 2 is an absolutely fantastic game.
Oh, gosh.
It's like an experience. Like how do you enjoy playing it?
I do, but I enjoy playing the puzzles for maybe the first 2 or 3 times after they've been finished and implemented. But the stuff which is kind of systemically richer, like the gunplay, the cover-based gunplay, is the stuff that I can play for hours and hours and hours, almost indefinitely. So it's just a contrast, I think, between different styles of play, which all of us as game creators can freely mix and match to our own creative ends. You know? So, yeah. Thanks very much. So I now want to move on to what can be a slightly sensitive subject, and something that we don't often discuss very much, but I know that you're all up for it. I want to ask you about making money from your work. Can you make money from your work? And how does doing so impact you? How's that impacted your life? Tyler, can you tell us a bit about your experience of that this year?
Right, well, since I've been making games since I was 11, I actually didn't have a job in high school because I could make Flash games and get paid for that.
So no paper rounds?
So I've never worked at KFC like most of my friends did.
Which I thought was pretty interesting. I mean, I had no idea it's this kind of whole world of you can be a teenager in the United States and make money from your games being on Newgrounds. And,
yeah.
So it's not something that's really that new for you. How about, I mean, has being in competitions helped you in this regard?
In terms of how